A Telegram user shares within spirit of Admito's Telegram chat. Quite a neat video. We'll play a portion of it here.
You want to talk about a real tragedy? It's right here in the canal zone of Panama City. This whole facility used to be controlled by the US government. It was a military base to protect the Panama Canal. Jimmy Carter gave it away, and now it's basically been taken over by the United Nations and NGOs. One of those right here, OIM, Organization of International Migration. They're the same organization that were handing out condoms and birth control to illegal aliens before they came over the Darien Gap into Panama. Rather than saying, stop, don't do it, they said, here's some condoms, here's some birth control for any way. That's how disgusting these organizations are. They pretend to be good, and all they're doing is feeding on human misery. And this entire facility here, almost every single building here now is either United Nations operation. You've got UNICEF on the other side of this building. You've got the UNHCR. Now they have two buildings. That's the refugee side of the United Nations. They've got two buildings because they've had to expand. They got too big for this. And on top of that, you even have the Clinton Foundation out here. These organizations need to be defunded, and they need to be investigated for trafficking. They are part of what the cartel's doing. You can't just blame the cartel. These organizations have to come down to not another dime of taxpayer dollars should go to the United Nations, and in particular, not to OIM.
It turns out the U.S. is the United Nations' largest donor, and given that we fund the government, those funds for the UN are derived from our labors and the promise of the labors of our grandchildren. The mentioned office of IOM in Panama is apparently in league with the World Economic Forum agenda, as you see it displays the rainbow circle. It is important for us to be aware that the UN, operating as a function of the state, has a very specific state agenda and is operating on policies U.S. voters never voted on. Our vigilance in understanding the locations of the tendrils and organizing core of the state is key to our beginning steps in being able to stop its further encroachment against our liberties and the Constitution.
World War I marks the official beginning of psychological operations as a subsection of the Department of War. It was headed by Captain Eber Blankenhorn, and a small team was sent to France in July 1918. Between the 5th of August and the 11th of November 1918, over 3.6 million leaflets were disseminated over enemy lines. Airplanes were occasionally used for dissemination, but normally hot air balloons were used. Although the number of German soldiers who surrendered due to psychological operations is not known, over 300,000 did surrender on the battlefield. Many had multiple leaflets on their person. According to prisoner interviews, as well as several written officer statements, the constant bombardment of leaflets played a key role in demoralizing soldiers by making them question their leaders and the purpose of the war. Several officers directly blamed leaflets for lowering morale, stating that the effects were disastrous, with over a third of a million enemy soldiers surrendering.
The war is going to be won or lost by the hearts. Do not be intimidated by the scope of a political enemy's actions. Never show your full hand at first. Build your strength while appearing weak and hapless to the enemy.
Going out in 2018 is like going out in 2016 or going out in 2020.